Ever get that feeling? You know, like you're waiting for something huge to happen. Like, is this it?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's the rapture, right? The ultimate what happens next. And this deep dive is all about that. We're going right to the source on this one. This chapter by Dr. Roy E. Richmond you sent over really makes you think.
Yeah. It's definitely a hot topic. I mean, the whole pre-tribulation rapture thing, people getting whisked away before things go south, it's got a grip on a lot of folks.
No kidding. It's kind of wild, though, when you really think about it. Where did this whole idea even come from? It's like just accepted as fact by some. But Dr. Richmond, he's saying, hold on, this isn't some ancient truth. It's actually pretty recent.
Totally. He even points out the word rapture itself, not in the Bible.
Whoa, seriously?
It took off in the 1800s. Can you believe that?
Wild. So rewind to the 19th century. Dr. Richmond, he talks about this woman, Margaret MacDonald, had this dream, and it kind of set things off.
Oh yeah, Margaret MacDonald. Her dream or vision, however she saw it, had a huge impact. Really makes you think about how powerful personal experience is, right? Even dreams, shaping how we see our faith and all that.
For sure. But like you said, just one interpretation, right? And Dr. Richmond reminds us, even back then, not everyone was buying into the whole rapture thing.
Nope, some big names back then weren't on board at all.
Ooh, like who are we talking?
We're talking George Mueller, for one, William Booth, even Charles Spurgeon, all opposed. Didn't line up with their reading of the scriptures.
Interesting how one person's dream can lead to such big changes in how people see things. But Dr. Richmond is all about digging deeper, beyond the hype. What do the scriptures actually say? So what about those skeptics? What was their take, especially on those passages everyone points to? You know, like 1 Thessalonians 4.16-17, the so-called rapture verses.
Okay, so here's where Dr. Richmond's take on all this gets super interesting. He suggests that maybe, just maybe, it's not about a physical escape, like beaming us up, Scotty.
Right.
It's about a spiritual thing. Transformation from within, a gradual internal rapture. Waking up to the Christ life, he calls it.
Okay, so not vanishing into thin air, more like a continual process of growing and changing. Man, that really challenges the whole rapture picture, doesn't it? And he uses stories like Noah, right?
Yeah.
And Lot to get his point across.
All right, Noah and Lot. They weren't whisked away from the chaos, were they?
No way.
Major trials, both of them. But they made it through. Examples of faith when things were falling apart all around them.
Powerful stuff. So it's not about dodging the hard stuff. It's about finding that strength to handle it. Makes you think, how this whole different view of the rapture, it could change how we deal with our own struggles,
It really flips the script. Dr. Richmond even says the traditional rapture idea, downright dangerous, he calls it, could make people complacent. Like, why bother?
Right. Yeah, if you're just waiting to be rescued, who cares about the world burning? Right.
Exactly. He's saying that kind of thinking, it misses the point of the gospel. Totally misses it. Transformation's the thing. Within us and out there in the world.
So we're not waiting for some cosmic evacuation. What are we supposed to do then? How do we live out our faith right now with all the messed up stuff going on?
He's not saying we ignore the suffering. Not at all.
Wow.
Use the Israelites in Egypt as an example.
They weren't exactly beamed up out of there, were they?
Nope. Hardship. They had it in spades, but God was with them through it.
Finding that inner strength to just keep going.
Nailed it. And that's where his take on those end times prophecies, it gets really interesting. He's saying they're not about literally escaping hardship. They're about the strength we find when we're aligned with God, even when things are rough.
Like finding the courage to dance in the rain, right?
Love that. He's saying not only is this perspective more biblical in his view, but it's way more hopeful, empowering. We're not just watching the world crumble. We're part of God's work, redeeming it.
Occupy till he comes takes on a whole new meaning, huh? It's about getting our hands dirty, making a difference.
100%. He uses examples like George Mueller, dedicated his life to orphans. William Booth, the Salvation Army, helping the poorest of the poor. These weren't folks sitting around waiting to be rescued. They were bringing heaven to earth.
Their faith was a call to action. It makes you wonder, what if we all lived like that? Our churches, our communities, the whole world even, not waiting to be rescued, but being the rescuers.
Powerful stuff. And it ties into something else he talks about, the danger of fear-based faith, especially when it comes to the rapture.
Man, have I been thinking about that a lot lately? All the craziness going on.
It's natural to feel that way. But Dr. Richmond, he warns against letting fear drive our faith, He says a lot of groups throughout history who were really into the rapture, fear motivated them.
Fear of persecution, the unknown, the future in general.
Exactly. And he says Not only is fear a bad foundation for faith, but it's damaging. Makes us easy to manipulate.
Totally. He even talks about people selling fear, profiting off of anxieties about the end. He has some pretty disturbing examples. People getting hurt, even killed because of this stuff. It's a good reminder. Words have power. How we interpret and teach these things, it matters. So if fear is not the answer, what is? What motivates this act of faith he's talking about? If it's not about escaping hardship, then what's the point?
The million-dollar question, right? Dr. Richmond's answer. Simple and really deep.
So if fear's not it, what is? What gets this whole active faith thing going, the kind Dr. Richmond's talking about?
One word, love.
Love, huh?
God's love, yeah.
Yeah.
Shining through Christ. That's the engine, he says. Should be at the heart of everything we do.
Love. Makes sense, but kind of vague, right? How do we actually live that out day to day?
He breaks it down. 3 things. First, can't just sit back when we see injustice. Got to fight it. He's all about being salt and light, remember?
Yeah.
Not just watching the world go dark.
So more than just talking about change, actually doing something, even when it's hard.
Yes. Putting our faith into action, getting our hands dirty, you could say, for a more just world.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And that leads right into the second thing. Serving others, especially those who need it most. That's Christian love, he says. Like Christ, compassionate, selfless.
Being those hands and feet of Christ, right? Here and now. Not waiting to be rescued, but being the rescuers. Who were some of the people he mentioned as examples?
Oh, we talked about George Mueller taking care of orphans.
Yeah.
And William Booth starting the Salvation Army, reaching out to the poorest of the poor. Those folks weren't hanging around waiting for the end. They were busy bringing a little heaven down to earth.
Seeing that spark of God in everyone, no matter who they are.
Exactly. And lastly, don't just talk about what you believe. Live it, every part of your life. Show Christ's love, grace, compassion. Let those actions speak.
It's not what we say, it's what we do, how we move through the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Real change. It's not about being beamed up and away from the mess. It's about letting Christ in, letting him work on us from the inside out, making us that love and grace in action.
This deep dive, it's really got me thinking, not just about the rapture, but about, my whole faith, It's not about escaping to some perfect place. It's about taking those values, compassion, justice, bringing them here now.
And he backs it all up, not with just ideas, but with stories, real people who lived it, that active faith.
People who didn't run from the hard stuff, they faced it head on, with their faith, believing God's still working in the world.
It's a good reminder, isn't it? No matter what we're going through, we're not alone. Our faith, it's not passive. It's not about escaping. It's a call to action, to join God in this wild ride of making things new.
Wow. Joining forces with something bigger than ourselves to make the world better. Makes you wonder what we could do if everyone really got that. Well, I think we've reached the bottom of this deep dive. But the conversation, it doesn't stop here. What will you do? How will you answer that call to action? To live out your faith,